This is Transcending with Torie, and today's guest, Lorien Stern. Hello, Lorien.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about your life, practice, inspirations through the lens of music and learning more about you through your musical influences and things that inspire your practice. And I just am such an admirer of your work and what it evokes. So thank you, Lorien. Our first question today, just to dive into the world of Lorien Stern and all your characters. And for those audience members that aren't familiar, Lorien is a sculptor, multimedia artist. You have so many different mediums and you evoke a sense of humor, play, joy that you would talk about a lot in your previous interviews. And I was really interested and curious about how would you describe your work and inspirations?
I would describe my work as generally pretty colorful, happy. My goal is to make work that make people feel happy. And whether that's through focusing on color combinations that are soothing or make me feel joy or getting inspiration from nature. Humor is really important to me. And I think there's just a lot of humor that comes out in my work. My biggest inspirations are definitely animals and nature. Dealing with the subject of death or things that scare me, I'll do that through sculpting and ceramics and painting, and I really use color a lot to makes it more approachable.
Talking about how you can shift from a place of fear into a place of acceptance and joy and play. And I learned from a past interview of yours, it was a video interview that you conducted, learning about your past father. Your father was a jeweler and an alchemist. And do you also feel that you are an alchemist? And do you feel his influence and his memory and life around you?
Yeah, definitely. He's also probably one of my biggest inspirations. I haven't really thought of myself as an alchemist, but what he did and his creativity and his openness has, inspired me, I think, to do what I do. And he comes up in my work a lot symbolically as the ghost character or the snake character. My family is very animal obsessed, and my mom is the full-time astrologer, and my dad was born the Chinese zodiac year of the snake, so that was always the animal assigned to him. So anytime there's a snake in my work, it's inspired by or a nod to him secretly.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. I mean, that makes perfect sense as far as learning about the environment you create in. I know you're based in the Mojave Desert. It was interesting to learn that you're surrounded by really unique objects and also a fleet of cars, things from your childhood as far as memories with your father or photos or relics are in these cars. And do you often wander the area for inspiration?
Yeah, gosh, there's so much stuff out here because my mom's first husband, the one before my dad, who is the father of my half-siblings, he bought the property that I live on currently, and he's had it since 1990, and my family's been in construction, and they like to collect things, and so where I live is just kind of this sprawling salvage yard, and there's a ton of abandoned trailers and cars out here and all kinds of things. And when I was young and my dad passed away and we were moving, my brother spontaneously didn't want to get rid of some of the things we're getting rid of when we were moving out, and he just brought them out here and put them in cars. And yeah, so I'll walk around sometimes. All the cars are 50 steps from the trailer I live in now and see what's inside. But a lot of stuff has disintegrated, gotten very dusty. And I feel like I've found most of the cool stuff already. I'll find a box of my dad's old jewelry making tools, or a box of his X-Acto knives, or a big crystal. Yeah, just random stuff. There's tons of inspiration and potential out here. And actually, the sun is so strong out here, we barely ever have clouds. So there's nothing shiny. Anything that was ever painted with any shine will like disintegrate and just turn into like a powdery pastel. So there's tons of like soft colors and everything's matte and it's very dreamy. It feels like you're in a different world.
I love that. And yeah, speaking of these different worlds that you're inhabiting, or it's like dreamlike state, I'm starting to think about the sounds around you. And when you're in this environment, what kind of music, or if music at all, do you listen to when you're creating?
Yeah, it really depends. Music is such a helpful tool for me to like get me in the mood to work because I do this full time. And even if like I'm not in the mood to work, I still gotta figure out tricks to be creative. And sometimes I'll be feeling like really sensitive and not want silence, but want like just something very close to silence. And I'll just put on most like massage room music or like just ambient music or whatever. And then a whole bunch of music in between up to like, I need to get like really motivated and amped up and like listen to Eminem or 90s rock. It's all over the place for me.
Yeah, it sounds like music from your past, your childhood, but also interesting to hear how you create a meditative environment most times when you're creating.
Yeah, I'm very easily distracted. So if I'm having to come up with new ideas, like there can't be any words in the songs. It just has to be really like soothing. But yeah, it just depends on how I'm feeling.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of the desert and just the silence of it, are there particular sounds that can inspire you as far as winds, or I don't know how the terrain is and the weather patterns, but are there things in those elements that influence you?
I do love the silence out here. It helps me focus. But when there is noise, it will be like birds, which are really nice. Or at night, there'll be like a group of coyotes howling, which to me sounds like drunk college girls partying, which is kind of delightful. It just sounds like girls laughing and running around. I have pet ducks that quack a lot, and that's also a pleasant sound to me.
And yeah, I was wondering, are there like certain times of year that are more influential to your practice?
Yeah, I definitely love spring the most for thinking of new ideas. The summer, I like working too, but it can be really hot. It can be hard to like stay in the studio for long. I just got an AC unit in my studio for the first time in 10 years this past year. Used to have these like swamp cooler machines, which are like fans with a water drip to them, but they only make the room like 20 degrees cooler and it'll be like 115 out, so it's still 95 in the studio all day. But anyways, I love the summer, but it can be brutal. I'll just trick myself. I'll be like, a lot of people pay money for this kind of heat and they like sweat out their toxins. So I'm living the life.
Wow. Talking about coyotes and ducks and snakes and these ghosts, I really feel your cosmology of just characters and world that you've built in your mind. Do all these separate characters or animals interact, or what does their universe look like?
That's funny you asked that. I do kind of have silly ideas of how they interact, like which characters are best friends. I always imagine I have this panther head character. I always imagine he's talking on the watermelon fruit, but as his phone. And I always imagine that my cheetah character and the ghost are best friends. I'm always pairing them together. I feel like my tulip and toad are best friends. There isn't like a big logic or reasoning to this. It's just what's happened over the years in my mind.
Yeah, and I was also learning about you created a massive installation with all your characters, and I know that created a huge opportunity. And the question is, have things that have been perceived as quote unquote failures that have become later successes changed the course of your career? In particular, the funeral album collaboration with Lil Wayne. How did that all come about?
Oh, yeah, that was so crazy. I did an art show of like a dream cemetery. I made a lot of headstones that had like animals on them, or they were watermelons. They were very colorful, a lot of rainbows and flowers and animals in the cemetery, a giant snake. I wanted to create just kind of like a comforting environment that was also a cemetery. And I'd been working on the show for about 2 years, and right before the show, someone significant to the show told me they were like unsure about the work, and they were a little worried it was too much like a mini golf course vibe. And that was like a pretty big shock and blow to how I was feeling. I was feeling really excited and confident about this show. It was damaging to my confidence, but I almost had to like paint over all the headstones solid colors, and just to make it so the show wouldn't be canceled. But luckily I didn't have to do that. The show went on and it got a really good response, but I was still feeling a lot of self-doubt. Years later, someone from Lil Wayne's team reached out to me and said allegedly Lil Wayne and his stylist were talking to him about merch collabs for his upcoming album release called Funeral. And they wanted him to reach out to me because they liked that I made colorful, celebratory funeral themed art or death related art, because Lil Wayne grew up in New Orleans and there's like a culture there of a lot more like celebration around death, and it's a lot more colorful. The culture of death and funerals in America can be like really bleak and dark, and it's like hard to talk about, whereas like people practice it in so many interesting ways all over the world. It's like very weird how it's dealt with. But anyways, I think it was like a last minute idea. And they're like, do you think you could get us designs by tonight or tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Even though I was flying to Hawaii that night to visit my brother, I was like, I'll just figure it out. I'll do it in the car and on the airplane. And I sent over some ideas, and then they were like, great, we're going to print these. And I'm like, wait, you don't want to like go back and forth? Should I like tweak anything? These were like rough ideas. And they're like, no, we got to print them now. And I was like, okay. And it was just a very quick whirlwind. I can't believe this happened. That was so cool situation.
Yeah, I love hearing also, you like created something and then became unsure about it. And then years later, it was used for something totally different. I feel like that goes with the theme of today's conversation of alchemy, transmuting, just having this kind of blind faith in things and letting, if you will say that, the universe kind of works it out in mysterious, magical ways. And talking about further career success, I can't not talk about the tiny sharks. And it's more like a phenomenon of sorts. You've made these shark heads, and I've learned that they sell out in a matter of seconds. And how do you process such a high demand from your patrons? Did you know this would be your best-selling ceramic?
It's so funny to me, and it's amazing that people really resonate with these shark heads. I actually made my first one in college 13 years ago, and was selling them like at craft fairs, and they would sell really fast, and I'd start selling them on Etsy. And so I just kind of kept making them because it was a way to make artwork and support myself. And I originally made them because I had a class assignment that was make a 6-inch sphere. And I thought the assignment was make a 6-inch sphere. And so I made a shark walking like upright out of the ocean. And everyone else in my class, it made a sphere. The teacher was really excited about what I had done. So everyone in the class